Hello guys, welcome back to another Yapathon. Today I'm actually going to be talking about the fact that I just changed to OLED. I've had an OLED TV for a little while now that we got off Facebook Marketplace for real cheap. However, I just switched over to 1440p OLED for my main monitor, and I'm going to use this for a little while, kind of see the upgrade path for 1440p, whether or not it's necessarily worth it before switching over to 4K OLED. So far, I'm loving it, especially because, okay, let me get into a little bit of what I had before. I had a 144 hertz 1440p IPS panel, 27 inches, for I think a few years now that I've used. I got it for like a little over 200, I believe, when I originally bought it. This was a while ago, and monitor prices have tanked down now. Like, they're so cheap now, it's not even funny. Anyway, so for the system I currently run, it was kind of pretty weak for, you know, the level of system I run. And so not only was it 1440p, which some people would say is not what you want when you're running a high level system, a 5080. I mean, you know, 5080 is comfortable in 4K, but it's powerhouse, absolutely beastly in 1440p, honestly, which is why I've struggled from switching to 1440p to 4K, but we'll get into that in a later video when I'm actually closer to switching over to 4K. But as it stands now, 1440p is wonderful. I absolutely love 1440p, especially because I now have 240 hertz. That has really opened up a door that wasn't there for me before. While upscalers exists, and I love upscalers, so the viability for 4K at high frame rates is huge, there are some things where it's just not going to hit as high. For instance, in, you know, Cyberpunk, with, you know, path tracing and all that, at quality DLSS at 1440p, I'm in the high 70s to low 80s with my 5080, right? So from there, I only need to use 3 times frame gen if I want to fill out that space pretty good, and anything past that, I'm breaking the barrier where G-Sync starts to become a little less effective. And so I generally want to keep it under 240, keep it under your frame rate, as high as it can go before breaking your frame rate, the hertz of your monitor. So that's what I've been doing. And it's been an absolute blast. It's been an absolute blast. Response times are really good. I've noticed that there has been a pretty substantial boost in the fluidity. I do notice it between 144 and 240. I wasn't sure if I'd notice it as much, but I've been playing a lot of the finals recently. I've been trying to get into more esports titles, and while that's not like the most popular esports title there is, it's definitely one I find the most fun at the moment, so that's why I'm kind of sticking with it. And I've really been benefiting from the 240 hertz. It's my first time experiencing it, to be honest. My roommate in college had a 240 hertz 1080p screen that he's had for forever now. It does esports titles beautifully, and he's never felt really the need to upgrade, although he was tempted by OLED once, and I wonder him seeing this, because I'm going to go see him on the this weekend of the 16th. I wonder what he'll think of OLED. Maybe he'll finally switch over. But anyway, that's beside the point. It's just an interesting thing. The hertz has actually been one of the most impressive things. While I do very much appreciate the visual upgrade, I've been able to appreciate the visual upgrade before on my TV. And so I kind of knew what to expect going in, especially now there's also phones. My phone has had an OLED screen for the past, 3 years at least, I believe. I'm not quite sure. So like, I kind of knew what to expect, but it still blows me away. You know, the contrast being so beautiful, the colors being very good. I mean, here's the thing. It's not the most expensive monitor ever. It's using that True Black 400, which I was trying to look up if that was enough to really see much of a benefit from QD OLED versus WOLED. There was a lot of debate. I wasn't sure. Some people were citing I think it was TechSpot or something like that. I'm not sure. Do not quote me on that. Who did a overview of the colors between WOLED and QD OLED at 400 nits, and they weren't seeing like any difference. Some people have said, oh, but I see a difference, but I don't know. I don't know what to think. This was only a very quick search on my part. I basically got the monitor I did because it was the cheapest entry-level option to OLED. I got it when I did so that I can experience this option, this tier of OLED screen, and it's, affordable. And if there's a good sale on Black Friday for something equivalent or better, for either a better price or for a very decent price for a 4K one, I'll switch away from this, especially because it is an AOC monitor and apparently their warranty. So here's the thing. OLEDs have downsides. Let's get a little bit into that. Okay, first I'm just going to list out all of the positives. Great contrast, pure blacks. Turn off your secondary monitors, play games in the dark. It is the most beautiful thing in the world, especially if you get those HDR settings toned in. SDR content doesn't benefit as much from OLED. I mean, you still get the benefit to contrast, but the colors aren't going to benefit much over LCD, that's for sure. And apart from the contrast, there's the colors. The colors are really, really good. I've noticed that they are striking. But the thing is, you have to get those HDR settings dialed in, and that's a per game thing, especially on PC. HDR implementation just is not as good as on consoles. Especially, there were some people talking about that in the comments, how they like to be able to just plug in a console and HDR will just work in all of the things that have it enabled. And it's not perfect. I mean, I have the Switch 2's HDR sucks. So I hardly even use that because it's just so hard to tune. And you need to tune it for everything. It sucks. It's bad. But yeah, it's really good. It's really good. And I would suggest people to switch to OLED. Now, for the downsides, there's a few. First off, price. OLED panels cost at minimum double their LCD counterparts spec-wise. So you can get a 240 hertz 1440p panel for a little over $200 probably, or a little under $200. I'm not sure exactly what that looks like. But this cheapest possible 240 hertz QD OLED 27-inch 1440p monitor cost $450. And you're shelling out that money. I mean, I'm probably going to return this monitor because of option number 2. So keep that in mind. Price. Point number 2, there's burn-in. There is the possibility for burn-in. And while there's a lot of techniques that minimize this, there's a lot of OLED care options. There's a lot of things you can do to mitigate it. You still want to be careful that you're not leaving the same content up on the screen. Make sure you're doing the pixel refresh. At this point, I'm doing it every time I turn off my screen for the night. I'm not sure if you're meant to. I was better safe than sorry, I guess. Every time I turn off the PC to walk away for any substantial period of time, I do the pixel refresh. Also, there is a thing that comes up every 4 hours saying that you need to do the pixel refresh. And this happens regardless of what you're doing on the PC. You will get this giant notification. So if you're trying to clutch in a game or something, you're the last one alive and you're about to win, you get this giant pop-up on the side of the screen. At least it's not in the center, which I hear there was some, I believe, LG, I'm not sure, LG monitors that were doing that for people where they would fill up the center of the screen with this notification and totally screw you up. It's off to the side, so I hardly even noticed it when it appeared, but it could still be distracting, so that is something to think about. But the real problem with this pixel refresh every 4 hours, which you don't necessarily have to do, you can, tell it to go away and, go a little bit longer and then do it a little bit after once you're at a good stopping point. But the real problem with this is AOC's warranty. Its warranty policy, or at least what I was reading from a lot of people were saying that they have reserved the right to void your warranty if you choose to skip one of those 4-hour recommended pixel refreshes, and if you have a claim for burn-in issues, which is very bad. Especially when you're paying as much as you are for a monitor, you expect to get some time out of it where you're kind of carefree. And so that's why I'm a little skeptical of whether or not I'm going to keep this monitor. If there's no good deals or anything, I'll probably still end up returning this one and switching to another monitor from a different brand, specifically because of the warranty issue. And it's got me a little spooked. But I will double check on my own term, make sure I read that through myself. But that is something to keep in mind when you're looking at all these things. If that's the case, that's a really, really bad thing. Really bad thing. So I'm definitely going to have to keep that in mind, and you should as well. Make sure you're checking those warranties. But yeah, another thing, just like as less of a pro or a con, more of like kind of just a little like tidbit, is with OLED monitors. You're going to be getting listings for 27 inches, right? 1440p at 27 inches, right? But those panels, while the OLED panel might be 27 inches, right? It might be a 27-inch panel. The screen, the active screen that you will be using is most likely 26.5. And I've already noticed this in action. I'm pretty sure it has to do with the pixel shift. So as another OLED saving countermeasure, you'll see the screen will shift down rows of pixels. And so it leaves space at the bottom, and I believe the sides as well, to allow for it to shift the image just in case it's been static for too long, or just to save some pixels from, extra damage. Because if you're often on the same screen, if they shift that every so often, then you're less likely to damage a single set of pixels. You're going to be moving it around a little bit to allow for those pixels to be different, to do different things. And I mean, it works. I believe that's what it's doing. I know my TV does that, and I believe it is a standard OLED feature. Correct me if I'm wrong. But what that means is that you do see around where the bezel is, you see extra screen real estate that is just black. It's just black. And I'm pretty darn sure, I'm convinced that right now it's shifted from yesterday. Because I had the top of my secondary monitor, which is a 27-inch 1440p monitor, so it will never match up perfectly. It's just how it is. I had the tops of both of them lined up together, and now the OLED monitor's screen is lower, and I haven't touched it. So maybe I'm crazy. I mean, I'm perfectly okay being crazy, okay? If I'm being crazy and silly, let me know. But that, I'm like, whew, yeah. It's just one of those things you have to keep in mind. And that's another reason why I wanted to make sure I got a 4K at some point, because then the change in size would make up for the fact that I'm not trying to line up the two exactly. If I have a 1440p monitor over here that's already smaller, then it's not really going to make a difference if I have something that's not quite 32 inches. You know what I mean? So I can have that 4K, right? That's very large, and then have it, be slightly smaller than 32 is not really going to impact the transition. But having two 1440p supposedly 27-inch screens right next to each other, but the one of them be smaller, it's just like, it's a little OCD thing. Like it's not a big deal, and don't even really care too much, but it is something to be wary about. So in the end, a little bit of a, TLDR. I mean, I guess this is the end of the video, so TLDR, sure. To summarize, OLED is beautiful. I absolutely love it. I don't think I'm going back. However, there are downsides, i.e., burn-in is still a concern in 2025. It's much less of a concern, but it still is. Warranties, make sure that your warranty is set for taking care of your OLED panel, because that's also kind of wacky. And that the fact that the screen might be a slightly different size than your main screens. That's just something to keep in mind. Well, anyway, thank you guys for tuning in, and I hope you have a wonderful day. I'm going to be trying to upload a little bit more consistently. Right now, I'm, just got started on this, so my schedule is a little bit all over the place. The next few days, I might be having videos consecutively, just because I'm a little behind on my expected 3 videos a week. So I'm going to try to keep up on that a little bit better than I have been. Yeah, just, it can get a little overwhelming, feeling like you got chucked into the deep end. But I'm not quite in the deep end yet. Still less than 1K. But yeah, I thank you guys for, sticking around. And I hope you have a good one. Bye-bye.